have everybody here. Well, what a great day that we have in front of us today as we introduce an alumni of Naval Postgraduate School, our Secretary of the Navy, Carlos Del Toro. So for the sake that he is an alum, can we first give him an initial round of applause? So let me read you a little bit about his bio, because if this were a graduation, you would have his bio in your program. But I think it's important to hover over this good man's life and what he has done for the nation, and then to talk about his leadership. So the Honorable Carlos Del Toro was sworn in as a 78th the 78th SecNav on August 9th, 2021. As a secretary, he is responsible for over 900,000 sailors, Marines, reservists, and civilian personnel in an annual budget exceeding $210 billion. His priorities are the training and equipment for successful naval operations, demanding and addressing the most pressing challenges confronting the U.S. Navy and the Marine Corps, China's naval ambitions, climate instability, COVID's ongoing impact, and the strengthening and naval culture of inclusiveness and respect. Born in Havana, Cuba, Del Toro immigrated to the U.S. with his family as refugees in 1962. He was raised in Hell's Kitchen, the neighborhood of New York City, and he attended public schools and received an appointment to the United States Naval Academy, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, and that he was commissioned as a surface warfare officer upon his graduation in 1983. His 22-year naval career included a series of critical appointments and numerous tours of duty at sea. But before I mention those, I want to say that in 1998 to 1999, separate from that, he was a White House Fellow, and that is where I first met Carlos Del Toro, because we have been in that same alumni association. His 22-year naval career, though, included a series of those kinds of jobs that we need to really point to, because this is what he did in our Navy. He was the first commanding officer of the Aegis guided missile destroyer USS Bulkley. He was a senior executive assistant to the Director for Program Analysis and Evaluation in the Office of SecDef. He was a special assistant to the Director and Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget, where he helped manage the budgets of DOD, Department of State, CIA, DIA, and NRO, and the Peace Corps. After retiring from the Navy at the rank of commander, Mr. Del Toro founded SBG Technology Solutions in 2004. As its founder, CEO, and president, he supported defense programs across a host of immediate and long-term Department of Navy issue areas, including shipbuilding, AI, cyber security, acquisition programs, space systems, health, and training. He holds a master's in national security studies from the War College, the Naval War College, so a Naval Academy graduate, a graduate of the Naval War College, a master's in space systems engineering from us, and a master in legislative affairs from the George Washington University. Most importantly, though, he was a Warrior Scholar here and a student. So yesterday, go ahead, and he awarded to Dr. Rudy Panholzer the extraordinary distinction of a Civilian Distinguished Service Award, which is not easily earned. And yesterday we had a number of our faculty, staff, and our warrior scholars here, as Mr. Del Toro gave to Dr. Panholzer this award. Let's give a round of applause for Dr. Panholzer. Now, I'm a history major. I have no idea what this is. But Mr. Del Toro created it. This was his creation, and we still have it at NPS. And I'm not going to tell you how old this is, nor his the grade on his thesis. But the title of it is The Development of a Satellite Telemetry Recorder Using a Magnetic Bubble Memory. Wow. And what Dr. Panholzer said yesterday was, this is this size, it's now a microchip. So to tell you that we have amongst us, one of us who is a supporter, a leader, an endorser, and somebody who really believes in what you all are doing, I ask for a round of applause for our Secretary of the Navy, Carlos Del Toro.
Good morning, everyone. I can't tell you how humbling it is for me to be here today. 33 years ago after graduating. It was indeed a tremendous honor for me to attend this grand institution and to have graduated from here. And I attribute my selection, partially as a Secretary of the Navy, to the experience that I gained during the 3 years that I was here. So thank you for this great honor. And thank you, President Rondeau, for those kind words. I only wish both my parents were here to hear them. I believe that my father would have appreciated it. My mother would actually have believed it all. But thank you for your tireless efforts to advance a culture of lifelong learning for the Navy and Marine Corps while leading this great institution. And that culture of lifelong learning is indeed our greatest competitive advantage. And when I'm often asked what's the difference between us and our adversaries, my answer is quite clear. We train our warriors to think. They script theirs to fight. And there's a major difference. So it's truly an honor to be here in Monterey to address some of the most talented women and men that the Navy Marine Corps team and our entire Department of Defense has to offer. I had the great privilege of studying here myself during my career as a naval officer. I was a lieutenant commander at the time. So I know firsthand the quality and the criticality of the education that you get here. And I have 3 points that I would like to make today. First, I want to underscore why lifelong learning is a strategic imperative for the Department of the Navy. Second, I want to discuss how we intend to invest in lifelong learning. And finally, I want to discuss your responsibility, not only being lifelong learners yourself, but in passing on the value of lifelong learning to the junior officers and the enlisted personnel who look up to you out in the fleet and the force. As you may know, one of my key priorities as Secretary of the Navy is strengthening the maritime dominance of the United States. Maritime dominance as part of the joint force is the best deterrent we have against increasingly aggressive competitors. It is how we can keep the sea lanes open, enabling the global trade that has raised living standards for billions of people across the continent and hundreds of countries. Yet our maritime dominance is no longer the foregone conclusion that it once was. We simply can't afford to be complacent or assume that we will always have that technological edge on our adversaries. Our commitment to lifelong learning, your commitment to lifelong learning, is how we stay ahead of the curve at all times. Our pacing threats, most notably China, are rapidly building capacity. There is no question about that. Just in shipbuilding alone, they have 13 shipyards. The People's Liberation Army and Navy is not only building ships at a greater numbers, it is also developing new technologies at a rapid pace, and let's not kid ourselves about that. I graduated from the Naval Postgraduate School in 1989 with a master's degree in electrical engineering and a Navy subspecialty code in space systems engineering. The legendary Dr. Rudy Panzholzer was my thesis advisor. I had the honor, as was suggested by the President yesterday, of distinguishing upon him the Navy Distinguished Civilian Service Award. Dr. Panzholzer cared deeply about his students. He set the very highest standards. To say my training at NPS was rigorous is an understatement. And I'm confident that all of you here feel the same way about your own curricula and your own professors. Getting my degree was hard. And I was not an outstanding student at the Naval Academy. I did get better here at the Navy Postgraduate School. I even managed to graduate with distinction from the Navy War College. Lifelong learning. And it should have been that way. The knowledge that I gained during my time at NPS was foundational. And it was knowledge that I continued to build upon over the course of my entire career in the Navy, as well as in the private sector. And while technology has sometimes changed dramatically since then, as you could tell from my bubble memory recorder here, that eventually flew in space on a follow-on type design that was managed by students like yourselves at the time. The core concepts remain the same. Yet that dynamic is precisely why lifelong learning is critical to the strength of the Navy Marine Corps team and the entire Department of Defense and the relationship that we have with our allies and partners. How many of you are international students here? Could I ask you to please stand up for a second? Thank you for your commitment to the Navy Postgraduate School. How about a hand of applause? Thank you. Just yesterday, I crashed the physics professor doing a one-on-one session on physics, obviously, and it was a student from Greece, and I thought, my God, how significant is this moment? One of my 3 guiding principles is to strengthen our relationships with our partners and allies, and here we have a Naval Postgraduate School professor. Dr. Clark, are you here in the room by any chance? No? Okay. He's probably teaching. Teaching one of our international students. I just met a month ago with the defense minister from Greece. I guarantee you the next time I meet with him, I'm going to tell him that I met that bright young officer here at the Navy Postgraduate School and thank him for his commitment to this school. So given the breakneck speed of technological innovation and the constantly evolving threat environment, it's critical that we prioritize learning, modernization, in addition to the learning core competencies so that we can keep current with the changing landscape. In the last 10 years, autonomous platforms and unmanned systems have gone from emerging technologies to everyday considerations. The cyber domain has gone from consistent concern to a perpetual battlefield. If we do not have individuals like yourselves who understand both how these technologies work and why they are so important to our warfighting concepts, we will cede our technological edge to our pacing threats. We need innovators and strategic thinkers who know not only how to fight wars, but how to prevent them from happening in the first place. As I speak, NPS is conducting the Joint Interagency Field Experimentation Exercise to identify better techniques for navigating in GPS-denied environments. This is critically important. NPS researchers are designing and implementing microgrid solutions to boost energy, resilience, and limit greenhouse gas emissions. Today, we have Marine Corps bases and naval bases that are completely moving towards an electric grid completely managed on the base. And not only does that make us more efficient, but we actually provide electricity to our surrounding communities. And that's the technical edge and advantage that we need to continue in our Department of the Navy. Under Admiral Rondeau's leadership, NPS is advancing critical industrial partnerships like the Microsoft CRADA that is now underway. And we need more creative solutions with industry to work with us as partners. This September, NPS is running the Warfare Innovation Continuum workshop to take all sorts of emerging technologies and determine how to apply them to the battlefield. Mastering these technologies is how we will continue to master the seas. Across this institution, I see astounding work that will contribute to our maritime dominance for years to come and contribute to the many critical problems that we face in the Army, in the Air Force, and the Space Force. Yet the value of lifelong learning goes beyond just technology, particularly at NPS. It extends to relationships and true partnerships. And to that end, I would like to draw your attention, again, to the extraordinary international engagement that's been going on here for decades. Just today, I understand we have over 48 countries that send their students here. And every time I meet with a head of Navy or a defense minister or a foreign affairs minister, I thank them for sending their students to us as young lieutenants and colonels and commanding officers so that they can build the types of relationships that I just talked about here early in their careers, so that when you go back to your nations and become CNOs and CMCs and chiefs of the armies and so forth, you could have that same personal relationship with many of you in this room here will undoubtedly also go on to be 4-stars serving in our Department of Defense. So I am very proud of that. And I'm asking every student to go out of their way to get to know each one of these international students for that very reason. Understand their point of view. Learn what matters to them. While you're on the NPS campus, you are not only students, Navy or Marine Corps officers, or even professors. You're all diplomats. And when I just came back from my trip to Singapore, and I met with the leadership of that great country, I needed to understand how Singapore would behave if, God forbid, we ever had to go to conflict with Taiwan. But I needed first to treat those officials in Singapore as peers and show them the respect that the United States has towards Singapore and the relationships between our countries. That, showing them respect, was far more significant than anything that I could say to them on a PowerPoint slide or a talking point. So given our new environment of great power competition, relationships with foreign partners and interoperability with their navies is the backbone of deterrent capability. And China understands that in any conflict we will work hand in hand with our allies and partners to bring enormous capacity to any fight. I may not be able to keep up with China one for one on the number of ships or aircraft or anything else that I have. But collectively, our allies and partners working together as one, defending freedom around the world, will send China, Russia, Iran, and any other adversary a very strong signal that we all work together. And that is why human connections, international with students here, matters just as much as the capabilities that we bring together. So I was just at RIMPAC, where NPS experts apply 3D printing technologies at sea aboard USS Essex. NPS, in the context of this massive international exercise of 28 nations, is pushing the bounds of technology further and further, enabling more complex repairs at sea and doing it side by side with our partners. There it was, a Xerox 3D printer, producing valve handles and other pieces of unique equipment for that ship that couldn't be easily obtained from the supply chain, and it was critically important to their survival. With each NPS innovation like that, our ships can spend less time in maintenance and more time doing the vital work of protecting our interests around the globe. I just came from the Space Systems Engineering Lab, where they were also working on a 3D printer, trying to put together a piece of equipment that I didn't quite understand. Hey, it's been 33 years, okay? To test out different materials to send up in space and see which one is actually most provides the greatest return on investment. So now, our most senior leadership, from the Commander-in-Chief to the Secretary of Defense, and of course the entire Department of the Navy, understands that advanced training is not free. NPS is a vital institution, but it needs much capital improvement. It needs reconstruction. It needs repair. It requires a sustainment investment. Updating the technology on campus while also expanding capacity to deliver distant learning and remote collaboration makes NPS more effective in accomplishing its mission. NPS provides us all extraordinary return. I understand that. Yet we can only reap maximum returns if we make the necessary investments, and I am committed to that cause of making the necessary investments in this school so that it can continue to produce the quality of students that we have produced for so many years. So talk is cheap, it always is. But we are currently in the process of developing next year's budget, and I've asked my team, my budget team already, to do everything they can to shift more investment in the near term towards education. And as we plan for future years, this is going to be a significant area of focus for me and our entire naval leadership. And I'll tell you, it's real good to be Secretary of the Navy at the top of this decision-making cycle. Earlier this year, I established a task force to take a hard look at the state of naval education across the board. And we as a department are in the process of reviewing their observations and recommendations as we speak. It was led by my White House fellow, Jen Onofrio, and had many participants here from the Navy Postgraduate School and the other schools. The entire Department of Defense, in fact, has made it clear that investments in lifelong learning are essential to the strength of the joint force. The Department of the Navy is completely aligned with this effort. Indeed, we have positioned lifelong learning as a major factor in how we determine who will lead our force well into the future. And let me assure you that every flag assignment that I have influence over, it's what I look at. Where did they go to school? What did they study? How did they perform operationally? And how much of a strategic thinker are they? I expect every single one of my generals and my admirals to know how to fight by the time they become generals and admirals. What I need them to do is to learn how to think so that they can avoid conflict in the future, and how to think technically speaking, and how to think strategically speaking. And at the core of both those concepts is the Navy Postgraduate School and the Navy War College. So don't ever second guess your decision to come to this school, or in the future to attend either the Junior War College or the Senior War College, because I'll be right behind you supporting you. Now I lost my place in my speech. So we are mandating, in fact, that all future unrestricted line, flag, and general officers have strategically focused master's degrees, because we want our officers to be well-trained and well-prepared to succeed at any task that they undertook. And again, as an example of that, just yesterday in San Diego, I met with all the surface warfare officers in the Navy, admirals in the Navy, and I very specifically told them, from here on in, I want you to always make sure, as you should have been doing, I'm confident that you have, to send our best and our brightest to the Navy Postgraduate School and the War College. But this commitment to lifelong learning applies to all of our uniformed members as well, regardless of rank, as well as our civilian personnel. As a group, you can do more to foster lifelong learning as a core value than I could ever with 1,000 memos and speeches. You control the future of the U.S. Navy's culture. Culture grows out of the thousands of interactions, both big and small, that you have each and every day with enlisted personnel and junior officers who look to you individually as leaders for guidance. Every time that you personally demonstrate how your advanced degree better equipped you to accomplish your mission, you advance our culture, our warfighting culture. Every time you challenge your direct reports to push themselves to acquire more advanced degrees and take more difficult classes, you advance our culture. Every time you remind someone struggling with a task that the United States Navy offers training resources to help them overcome a challenge, you advance our culture. And every time that you lead, you create the culture that our department demands. You control whether our people remain that competitive advantage that I spoke about. You control whether a maritime dominance will continue in the next decade and beyond. And as you complete your degrees here and move on to your next assignments, you will have a host of urgent demands upon your time and expertise, and I fully understand that. Nevertheless, it is critical that you make time to lead and to mentor those around you. It is the most important thing that you could do. It's your responsibility, in fact, to the next generation that comes behind you. My NPS education opened countless doors for me. Without my NPS education in space systems engineering, and I say that completely honestly, I may not be standing here as Secretary of the Navy. Yet what I enjoy about coming back to NPS extends beyond warm memories of the past. Rather, I enjoy coming back to NPS because, as President Biden said, America will always own the finish line. NPS is how America owns the finish line. This is, and the technologies that it helps us develop and master, and the relationships that it creates, is providing America with a decisive edge over our adversaries. You are providing us with a decisive edge over our adversaries. This institution and the leaders at Moe's will help us foster that culture of lifelong learning for the Navy and Marine Corps team that will persist long after everyone in this room is retired. With your leadership, we can meet any challenge that the future throws at us. There is no doubt in my mind that this Navy Marine Corps team will remain well ahead of our pacing threat at the end of the day. Whether the threat be an aggressive China, a warming climate, or the sheer speed of technological change, I am certain that we can overcome that challenge. My certainty stems from the extraordinary talent of each and every one of you here. And I know because I walk beside you. In closing, I also want to take a moment to thank all of your families for their commitment to this institution and to your own services as well, and to our nation, and to our entire alliance. And of course, now I'm happy to take all the questions. However, Ted Mordecai, where are you? He's my bodyguard. If anybody asks a question that's too hard, you'll be escorted out of the room. No, I'm just kidding. All right, who's the brave one to ask the first question?
Want me to go first? Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Secretary. I'm Lieutenant Bakotic. Sir, in my short time in the Navy, I've listened to people in academia, people in the military and the civilian sector say there's a shortage of people with technical abilities, from engineering, mathematics, to computing abilities. And as our society and military gets more automated, more complex systems, I feel this greatly will impact our military abilities and our nation as a whole. So what is the Department of Education doing to inspire or manipulate younger generation to go into the STEM fields? And what's the Department of Navy doing to help in this endeavor? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It's a great question. And we as an institution are investing a lot in STEM, even at the high school level, but certainly at the community college level. You know, we have a community college university now, actually, that we didn't exist when I was in the Navy back in 2004. So we're really encouraging our enlisted folks to get their community college degrees at the Navy Community College, for example, in the Marine Corps and the Navy as well, too. So I would say that there's actually a tremendous amount of focus on it. For many different reasons across society, however, we do understand that it's becoming more and more difficult to recruit the right types of people into the Navy with the right qualifications and education levels. And we just have to keep at it in every possible way. And it's across the board, and you play a very important role in this well, in encouraging kids to finish high school, for example, to go to community college. You know, college isn't meant for everyone either, but to pursue vocational studies as well, too. It doesn't just have to be, you know, at the higher education level. You know, there's tremendous need for people to pursue vocational studies in this country across the board. And we want to recruit many of those people into our Navy as well too. So it's something that's a whole of government type effort to try to make better. You know, I often get asked the question, you know, why don't we have a higher top line, for example, right? Well, part of the reason is, you know, there's tremendous demands across the entire government. And we have a responsibility to invest more in education across our country that often has been neglected throughout the decades. Our teachers today make far less money than most other professionals with equal degrees across the country. They deserve to have higher pay. They really do. And so these are the compromises that we have to make as a nation to ensure that we can recruit the best into our military services as well. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, sir.
Morning, sir. Captain Nick Royer. You talked a lot about investing, and I really appreciated your talk about investing in people in response to that question. And you talked a lot about the need to think strategically, look at the big picture, and really think about how to fight a war. We have a good defense analysis program here that focuses on those questions of how to fight a war, how to think strategically. And there's a lot of engagement with our allies and partners. Some of the classes I've been in there have been almost half from other countries. Tremendously valuable experience in shaping how to think strategically, think about coping with misinformation, great power competition, all the buzzwords. And I can count on one hand the number of students from the Navy and Marine Corps that are sent to that program. That's something that the previous head of the program actually mentioned to me, is they've been trying to get more students in.
I'm sorry, this is the National Security Affairs Program? Or
No, this is the Defense Analysis Program. National Security Affairs is the FAOs. And then you contrast that to programs like, say, our Modeling and Simulation Program, which I'm also in. As almost all Marine Corps students, when you look at computer science, it's a wealth of Navy and Marine Corps students. Despite the fact the quality there is, you know, maybe a little substandard in my opinion on some of those programs.
Okay. So where's the question, Marine?
So I'll build up to it, sir. So my question is, given what you said, what's the reason behind the focus on the technical and the tools and the what, and maybe a little less on the how when it comes to who we send to MPS and why?
Yeah. It's sometimes tough when you're trying to decide, you know, who to send to the Navy Postgraduate School or who to send to the Navy War College, institutionally speaking, right? In my humble opinion, you want to send those individuals that are your most aspiring officers, quite frankly, who show that little nugget of inspiration or innovation or the ability to think out of the box, for example. I'm not a check-the-box mentality type of person. And sometimes you're going to succeed, and sometimes you're going to fall short on how well that individual does at NPS or how well that individual does at the Navy War College. But that's perfectly fine too. But in my humble opinion, the people that you want to send here and the people that you want to send to the War College are the ones that are most inquisitive, that are willing to ask the hard questions, thinking out of the box, that are willing to oppose sort of the common theory that's out there. Even in my role as Secretary of the Navy today, I sometimes playing devil's advocate in very senior high-level meetings, and it doesn't always make everybody comfortable. I sometimes ask the question, you know, why would China actually bomb Japan or bomb Guam or bomb Hawaii prior to a potential invasion when China's greatest strength is actually their market economy and they would be attacking their principal customer, right? Now, do I agree that that might happen or it might not happen? I don't know. But we have to think about that because it determines our future courses of actions. So those are the types of people that we want to try to send here. And by sending large numbers of them, I guarantee you that we'll get some really good strategic thinkers and people who know how to use technology extremely well to our advantage. If we can keep China from ever leaving the pier, wouldn't that be a great thing? You all have the power of doing that in this room. And I know many of you are working towards that end. So thanks. That's a great question. I hope I answered your question.
It was a very well-crafted response, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. Good answer.
Good morning, sir. First Lieutenant Flynn. Sir, just a couple days ago, the Naval Institute reported that 2 of the 3 Zumwalt-class destroyers were getting their gun systems removed and replaced with the hypersonic glide vehicle system.
Yes.
So, sir, the Zumwalt obviously was originally designed around its gun system to provide naval surface gunfire support. Now, with obviously only 3 of those ships ever being commissioned and then 2 of the 3 having those systems removed, do you see moving forward as naval surface gunfire support as being a foregone conclusion that it's just not a feasible mission? Or is there a way that you're looking to get the Navy to re-bolster its naval surface gunfire support capability?
Yeah, so at the core of this issue actually is a very important lesson for everybody in this room. Modernization and which technologies to invest in is never easy. And often that the decisions that we make, because it takes such a long time to develop these complex technologies, often those decisions are made with a different set of concept of operations in mind and a different time frame. So the Zumwalt class of destroyers, for example, was first designed when I was leaving the Navy, around the 2000s or so. And it was called DDG 1000 at one point in time. And even back then, we knew that they would be very, very expensive platforms. We didn't even understand how expensive they would be. But I remember being at the Office of Management and Budget, working in the National Security and International Affairs Division, and a very senior four-star came up to me and said, practically poked me in the chest and said, you better make sure that DDG 1000 gets through OMB, through the White House, over to Congress. And I took a deep breath. Okay. I said, with all due respect, Admiral, that's not going to happen the numbers you think it's going to happen. There's no appetite for that politically in Congress and here in the White House. And by the way, the technology has not been fully flushed out yet. So we're making this major investment in a platform where the individual technologies have not been fully fleshed out. And part of that was the advanced gun system. And we worked on the advanced gun system for decades. It didn't work out. You know what? Sometimes that happens. The technology doesn't get you where you want it to get you. Or it's unaffordable, which in the case of the advanced gun system, the rounds were simply unaffordable. So now you're kind of stuck, right? Years later, with a gun that doesn't do what you need it to do. And oh, by the way, the mission has changed, because now we're looking at long fires, right? As opposed to, Navy gunnery support. So what's the lesson to be learned there? What's the lesson that I take on as Secretary of the Navy? Because I am investing now in platforms like DDGX and SSGX and others that probably will not come online for 10 or 15 years. Even Columbia will take a significant amount of time to get online. Well, the lessons that I learned from it and put to practice is that we have to be more responsible in operationally testing these technologies on the ground before actually committing these technologies to a particular platform. Okay? So even the engineering plant, for example, in our Constellation class frigate, we're testing those ashore to make sure that they fully function before we actually put them on the Constellation. So ground-based testing is very, very important. And it goes back to what Admiral Myers was a believer in the Aegis program, and Admiral Lewis knows this. You test a little, you build a little, you test a lot out of it before you actually implement it in great numbers. On the Marine Corps side, today we're looking at the law, for example, right? The light amphibious warship, right? Well, there's this whole discussion going on about how survivable it should be in transporting 75 to 100 Marines from island chain to island chain, basically. And I understand that discussion very well. We need to figure out what the right balance is. However, we need to produce those in small numbers so we can hand it over to the Marine Corps and let them play the hell out of it, okay? And use it and experiment with it before we commit to larger numbers for longer amounts of years. And so my theory is, before you build a big platform, you better test all the technologies on that platform before you actually put them on that platform, right? And in some cases, you shouldn't be building the ship before you understand all the technologies that you're going to put on there as well too, right? So DDGX is going to have more power for directed laser type weapons and things of that nature. So let's not rush the whole design of a DDGX before fully understanding all the technologies that are on there. In the meantime, You don't do nothing. You keep building DDG-3s, DDG-51 Flight 3s, right? That have the capability to meet the threat today. And you keep that line open before you move on to the next line. The other mistake that, in my humble opinion, we've made along these lines is, when we designed Columbia, for example, there's hardly any gap between Columbia and Ohio. So if we don't do things right, we're not going to have the number of necessary SSBNs, to have there out in the fleet if Columbia gets delayed too much. So I've actually called for, analysis to see how long we can keep the Ohio class open, boat by boat, so that we can have that continuum of operations, so that we don't, find out that Columbia ain't ready to go yet before Ohio closes out. So that's the kind of strategic thinking that's based on technological understanding. And let me tell you, I was never a brilliant student. Professor Painholzer will tell you that. But you got to think through these concepts, and you got to apply common sense. And it's having that foundational engineering experience and technological experience that allows the Secretary of the Navy to come in and be able to make those logical choices. I know there's a long answer to a short question, but thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Good morning, sir. Lieutenant Tyler Self, Surface Warfare Officer studying National Security Affairs for Southeast Asia. I'm currently researching Chinese shipbuilding, and I couldn't help but notice a contrast with our most recent shipbuilding patterns, with China building larger and more powerful warships with the Type 055 Renhai class cruiser.
Yes.
And most recently, their third aircraft carrier. Meanwhile, our most recent efforts have been towards smaller warships like the Littoral Combat Ship and upcoming...
Well, that's not a recent effort, by the way.
Yes. And the upcoming Constellation class frigate. So my question is, what do we hope the Constellation class frigate will offer us in terms of capabilities vis-a-vis China that, say, an Arleigh Burke class destroyer does not?
Look, I mean, it's going to be a smaller ship, obviously, a smaller platform, but we'll have VLS on it. It'll have surface capability, undersea capability as well, too, and some air capability as well. So, you don't always need the largest platform to fulfill all the missions. It's not always just about the high-end fight. The Navy has many responsibilities, and the Marine Corps have many responsibilities across the board. And those ships are going to be very useful across the board in greater numbers because they're cheaper to build, actually. And I'm quite confident that this is a ship class that's going to remain on track, on schedule, and on budget if I have anything to do with it. And so I'm quite confident that it'll fill a proper role in our surface fleet. LCS was designed, again, over 20 years, during the Rumsfeld administration, actually, to fulfill a different concept of operations that, quite frankly, I'm not sure it was always fully fleshed out. It wasn't. But my commitment, however, because we have 25 to 31 of those ships that are going to remain, and my commitment is to put naval strike missiles on those ships and employ the living hell out of them out in the Pacific and everywhere else that I can, and use them as aggressively as I can. They're going to have the surface module on it. They're going to have the minesweeping module on it, which is making really great progress as well, too. So I'm going to be about fully employing every capability that I have, no doubt about it. It's unfortunate that on the Freedom class, we had the challenge with the reduction gear, and we had the challenge with the undersea module as well, too. But you know what? Each and every one of you, you don't get to pick the challenges that you're going to have to face. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're going to walk into that next job or something, and there's going to be something that some knucklehead designed 20 years ago that you're going to be stuck with now. And you're going to have to figure out how to best use that platform, okay? Because we have a responsibility to the American taxpayer for every single dollar that they contribute to defense in this country to make the best use of it. And that's where I'm going to need you to apply all the skills that you learned here to make the best use of every platform, whether it be air, subsurface, or surface. Great question. Thanks.
Good morning, sir. I'm Lieutenant Commander Brian Curran, a PhD candidate in the Applied Physics Department.
Ooh, a really smart NPS student.
it keeps me off the streets and out of trouble, sir, so. So you've spoken at length about the emergence of new technologies and sort of the transformative properties that they have on the militaries of today. And this has caught the attention of a lot of people. In fact, this week, the Myra Scholar Program is holding a week of festivities, if you will, where we're learning about hypersonic systems. It's really been some great lectures. We've had all sorts of people come in and talk about it. But you know, it's not just limited to hypersonics. We have things like directed energy, as you've mentioned earlier. We have machine learning, autonomous vehicles. And so I ask, of these transformative technologies that are emerging, which one of these keeps you up most at night? And is there any way that we as students, and also perhaps more importantly, after graduation, how can we help in terms of preparing the Navy for dealing with these and perhaps implementing them ourselves?
Yeah. The best advice I can give you is really put all the skills you have educationally, analytically, from an operations research perspective, from an engineering perspective, put them all to use in developing, you know, those concepts of operations that you think are the right ones to employ, and then be decisive. As a leader, you can't be completely indecisive. At some point in time, let me tell you, there's no black and white answers to anything that I decide as Secretary of the Navy. It's all about how much risk is involved in making this choice over another choice. But at some point, you've got to be decisive about what technology you pick. And I'll give you a perfect example about that. The CNO and I have this conversation quite often. Task Force 59 out in Fifth Fleet has done a great job about exercising, you know, unmanned technologies. They brought together, I think it was 1,000 different ideas and projects, basically, and participation from about 25 nations across the Middle East and other places. They were building open architecture type, you know, platforms basically that anybody can sort of inject its own project into. And the C4I component of that is incredibly important to its concept of operations. But at some point, folks, we got to decide which are the 5 or 10 platforms unmanned that we're going to use and we're going to employ aggressively. So we're moving towards that decision, and I'm trying to impose that, you know, we got to come to a decision here on what's the best utility of all these unmanned platforms so that we can experiment with them as the next stage, as we did in RIMPAC. Out in RIMPAC, we had 2 destroyers, each operating with 2 unmanned surface vehicles. They were mostly medium unmanned surface vehicles. And we were not just, you know, figuring out autonomously how to operate the vessels to be safe. We were now really working the concept of operations on how you're going to fight the ships with a manned vessel, because that dance between manned and unmanned is going to be critical to how we employ these technologies. So I hope that partially answers your question. You know, there never really is a full answer, but decisiveness and doing the proper, you know, work up front to understand the technology and then develop the concept of operations for that platform, and then understand how we're going to build it and use it with manned ships. The future of the Navy, we will get to a 500-ship Navy. We will. And it'll be both manned and unmanned. And I have confidence. It won't happen overnight, may not even happen, you know, while I'm Secretary of the Navy, but we will make tremendous advances over the next couple of years in unmanned technology across the board. We've been working in the air for over 30 years with drones. The MQ-25 is going to be transformational with regards to carrier aviation. So, yeah, I'm excited about the future, but I'm an optimist. I'm not so.
Thank you,
yes,
sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. My name is Major Ellie Carrasco. I'm a student in NSA studying East Asia. I have a money question.
A money question, ooh.
I've lived in Monterey for about 1.5 years as previously staff at the Defense Language Institute. I know we're in a unique time in the United States. The average family is experiencing very high cost of living, no matter where you are in the United States. Have you discussed with your staff, or would you be willing to advocate for cost of living allowances for military members stationed in Monterey?
Yeah, that's it is an understatement to say that not only are we thinking about it, but we're doing all the necessary analysis to come up with better solutions, not just for those here in Monterey, but for our entire force across the entire Department of Defense. Now, largely that effort is led by the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. I'm not saying that I'm not engaged. Believe me, I am engaged, because I spend 25% of my time visiting with sailors and Marines all across the country and listening to the financial challenges that they have. And it's more than just, BAH. Now, so BAH is specifically being looked at, and especially for high-cost areas like Monterey and the Pacific Northwest as well, too. But it's a combination of BAH, it's a combination of child care support as well, too. We're building a $56 million child care center in San Diego, California. We've got 10 others built into the 5-year budget. Now look, anytime you talk MilCon, it's going to take a while to get there. So what do you do in the near term? Well, you increase stipends from about $1,200 to $1,700 for families who have to seek outside child care. But child care is a problem across the country and the nation. And so in order for us to use that $1,200 to $1,700 stipend, you've got to go to a child care provider that actually meets the criteria and the regulations of the Department of Defense. So it's a real challenge sometimes as well, too. For sailors that are making under $45,000 a year, we're looking at actually giving them additional bonuses. Now, it might not seem much, everything in life is relevant. The pay increase that we put in for this year is 4.6% pay increase. This is the largest in 20 years. Now, inflation's at 9%. I get that. So, but I get it. I'm no fool. But I'll tell you what, it's better to have a 4.6% pay increase than a 2% pay increase. So, my favorite two words in life are balance and compromise. But we have to do everything that we can to take care of our troops, because you are our most important weapon system. And we have to take care of you. We have to take care of your families in every possible way. The condition of barracks, enlisted barracks in the Navy is atrocious, in my opinion. So this year we've done a survey of all the barracks, and now I'm trying to figure out how to invest in the worst barracks that we can fix, for example. But each and every one of you plays a role in this. As leaders, you can't, in the Navy we have a phrase that's the CNO coined basically this past year, get real, get better, right? In order to get better, you got to get real about the current circumstances. So you can't stick your head in the sand when you see something that's wrong. We had barracks at Walter Reed Hospital, for example, where we had young junior enlisted corpsmen who just came into the Navy without hot water for 6 months. How the hell does that happen? How does that happen? I was furious. I learned about it on a Friday. My staff learned about it on a Thursday because they're well trained already. By Monday, we had all those corpsmen out of that barracks and into hotels in Bethesda, Maryland. But how does that happen? How does it go unnoticed or for 6 months? And too often, in these new enterprise systems where everybody has a role and a responsibility, there's a lot of this going on, right? Because there's 6 chefs in the kitchen. I need you as leaders, regardless of which one of those 6 chefs that you are, whether you own it or you don't own it, to stand up and say, this is unacceptable behavior. I need to raise this up the chain of command, and if you're not listening to me, I'm going to scream louder. So you can listen to me and know that there's a problem here. So I hear you loud and clear. And we are working this really hard, and I hope that there's improvements in BAH and cost of living allowances this year. And we're working very closely with the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel Readiness across all services to try to correct these challenges that we face today. And ironically, the economy is strong. Unemployment is real low, which makes my job harder in trying to recruit people into the services, because unemployment is low, but inflation is extremely high. So we can't ignore that. Thanks for that question.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Lieutenant Sam Brown, Middle East Program over in the NSA Department. Ever since assuming the SecNav role, you've been very consistent in calling out culture as one of the biggest challenges facing the Navy going forward. I'd just be very interested to hear your thoughts on how we got to the point where it is such a problem, and then going forward, aside from telling us all to be better, what tangible action items you have for that.
Yeah. Look, at most institutions, small and large, and I'll tell you, I was very honored. I'm blessed to have the 22 years of Navy experience. I don't have to ask. I don't have to, try to figure out what a DDGX is or a PLA or something like that. But I'm also blessed by 17 years in the private sector. And I've learned that, culture of an organization, both in the military and the private sector, is incredibly important to the success of the organization. You are our most significant warfighting capability. If we don't treat you with dignity and respect in every possible way, we will be unable to perform my #1 mission, which is to provide our combatant commanders with ready warfighters. You enlist in our services often at the age of 17, 18, 19, 20 years of age. And you have tremendous courage and conviction in doing that. Who am I to not treat you with dignity and respect across the board? So I keep my message very, very clear when it comes to culture. I expect you to treat each other as professionals. There is no tolerance in my Navy and my Department of Defense for sexual harassment, sexual assault, discrimination of any kind. I don't care who you love, where you came from, where you were born, what color your skin in, any of that stuff. We are professionals. And why do I need you to treat each other with dignity and respect? Because you have to trust each other. If you don't do so, then how can you trust each other when you're fighting in the foxhole as a Marine or as a soldier, or you're in a cockpit with someone else as an airman, or on a surface ship, or in a submarine, wherever you might be? I can only get you to truly trust each other if you respect each other. So to me, it's very important. And my second guiding principle is about building this culture of warfighting excellence, which means I have to make the proper investment in how we train you. If I'm going to ask you to drive a ship, con a ship, or con a submarine, or fly an airplane, damn it, I got to provide you the right amount of time in that simulator to learn you so that you can learn how to do it under all sorts of weather conditions and challenging, failures and things of that nature. That's my responsibility to do that. So that's why my second guiding principle is to build on this culture of warfighting excellence where everybody treats each other with dignity and respect. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Lieutenant Vince Vanderpool. Sir, we've had a lot of discussion about high-level research and development and future technologies and plans, but what steps are being taken to expedite the retrofitting and modernization of the current fleet and current warships to allow us to actually utilize some of these tools down the road? Because coming from a cruiser and FD&F to NPS is technological whiplash for about 30 years, sir.
Blame him. He built those damn destroyers 30 years ago. That's right. Get him out of here. Ted, where are you? Look, I'm going to make an amazing statement. Ships, aircraft, and submarines don't last forever. Next question. Honest to God, I mean, our Aegis class cruisers have been around for coming up on 40 years now. And you can continue to try to upgrade the combat system, but it's extremely expensive. The cruiser conversion program is, and a lot of good heart and souls and work went into investing in the cruiser conversion program. But man, once you start having ships in the shipyards for 2 years while you're trying to upgrade them, that's a problem, And we got to learn those lessons so that we can apply them to some of our older DDG-51s, the Block 1 ships basically that you're going to need upgrading now from the Spy 1 radar. So that we don't make those same mistakes in the future. And so sometimes you got to cut your losses and you got to retire that old platform, and at some point it gets unsafe. When you look at fuel tanks and fuel service tanks and transfer tanks and such, the deterioration of the metal, that you can't fix, right? So at some point, yes, they all have a tremendous amount of VLS cells on them. I get it. Members of Congress remind me of that every day. But are you going to put your child on that ship so you can have a Class Bravo fire when the fuel transfer system falls apart because it's 39 years old? Or are you going to pay $100 million to upgrade it when you can invest that same $100 million in a DG Flight 3 and have a new one a year from now or 2 years from now? I know the right answer. So I hope that answers part of your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Excuse me.
How you doing, sir? Seaman Smith. I was wondering, as a junior sailor...
Seaman Smith?
Yes, sir.
My God, you must be the most enterprising guy here in this whole room. How about a hand of applause for Seaman Smith? How long have you been in the Navy?
9 months, sir.
You love it?
So far, sir, yes.
You ready to sign up for 30?
No, sir.
Not yet? What's your question?
As a junior sailor, is there any advice you can give me for someone who may or may not stay in longer?
Katerina, where are you? Where's my aide? Where is she? Give that guy a coin, will you? Let's start with the coin. Let me tell you, the president said, that I was raised in Hell's Kitchen. Anybody know where Hell's Kitchen is? Yeah. There's a lot of people that don't know where Hell's Kitchen is. I usually follow with the question, you know what West Side Story? Have you ever seen the movie West Side Story?
No, sir.
No? Well, you need to go see it. But it's like West Side Story without the dancing and the music. And, I grew up in really poor and really tough neighborhood. And, English wasn't my first language, it was Spanish. And I was discriminated a lot when I was a kid. But I was very grateful to come to this country and for all the freedom and everything it provided me. And I chose to go to the Naval Academy. I never thought I'd make it. I remember telling my dad, God bless him, Dad, there's no way that place is going to take a guy like me, And what he said to me was, you know what? You'll never find out if you don't try, son. And so I tried, and I got in. And I discovered this whole new world that I was just not exposed to. And it was the Navy. It was the Department of the Navy. This magnificent world, And I took it a year at a time after I graduated. And I did my first 5 years. I thought, gee, this isn't bad, actually. I got three master's degrees, and I didn't pay a penny for any one of them. Okay? I took it a year at a time. And as long as I was having fun and I was having a great time, I was going to stay in. And next thing you know, 20 years later, I was still in. And I have every confidence that you, Seaman Smith, can one day do the same thing, whether you choose to go on to be a Master Chief or whether you choose to go into some Seaman Admiral program or something and go on and become an Admiral. And it's going to be a great journey for you. So that's my encouragement to you. Now, as someone who also served in the private sector, I know sometimes that the lure for additional monies is attractive sometimes. And sometimes there are circumstances that drive people in different directions. I'm not an overly religious person, but I know that God, works in mysterious ways, and He typically has a plan, or She has a plan for all of us in one way or another. And sometimes one door closes, another one opens. Make the best of each opportunity that you have, and don't worry about necessarily what you're going to do for 20 years. Although I only give people my coins if they stay in for 20 years. But make the best opportunity that you can with every experience that you have. And let me give you another just life lesson from my own humble experience. As officers, don't be thinking that you all have to become admirals or even captains. Try to become an 05. But don't judge your success as a naval officer or an Army officer or Air Force officer on the fact that you made flag or you didn't make flag. We sometimes live in too much of this bubble where we sort of make these false judgments on what success means. Live your life to the fullest. Enjoy every single moment of your time, here at Monterey. If you haven't played golf at Pebble Beach, go play golf at Pebble Beach, even if you stink at it, like I did. But enjoy every moment and enjoy your time with your families as well too, because it's very, very important. After I left the Navy, I was very happy I was still married to my wife. And that just didn't happen. That happened because of the family choices and the balance. Again, my favorite two words are balance and compromise. And you all need to find that right work-life balance in your own lives. So I'm sorry I've given you a very long answer, Seaman Smith, but thank you for asking the question.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir. By the way, all the admirals and generals work for me now too, so.
Good morning, sir. My name is Lieutenant Norton. I'm a student studying manpower analysis here.
Very good.
I have a money question as well.
Yes, sir.
We've already discussed the way that dramatically increasing costs of living are negatively impacting all of our personnel, especially folks at junior ranks. With the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade placing abortion care geographically far away from many of our sailors in fleet concentration areas, does the Navy have a policy plan to help mitigate the increased cost for sailors wishing to seek these services, given that the current policy requires them to fund their own travel and lodging to seek care out of state?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. And actually, the Department of Defense right now is exploring every possible course of action that we could take to help alleviate the challenges associated with Roe versus Wade and the decision that was made. And again, it falls within the responsibility, and I'm not skirting the answer, of the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel Readiness, so that we can have equal policy across the entire department, so that one service isn't doing something different from the other. But we're all contributing to that analysis, because the challenges that men and women face at sea, for example, aren't the same challenges that others face, on a base as well. So that analysis is ongoing right now, and I hope that over the course of the next several weeks, hopefully, we'll be able to come out with the sort of set policy of the things that we are allowed to do within the law, because we have a responsibility to follow the law, regardless of whether you agree with the law or you don't agree with the law. But we have a responsibility to follow it. So we're looking at every potential option to take care of our people in every potential way as well, too. I promise you that it has the highest attention from the Secretary of Defense, the Deputy, and all three of us service secretaries, as well as all the service chiefs as well, too, who care deeply about making sure that we care about each and every one of you. Female, male, this is not just a female issue, folks. This is a male, female, family issue. And we got to try to figure out the right things to do. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. YNSA Patterson. My question to you is, what are we doing for safety? On December 6, 2019, there was a foreign terrorist attack on NES Pensacola. What are you doing to prevent that from happening again?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat? I'm a little deaf, actually, because I served on lousy, very noisy steamships most of my life. So could you just repeat the question again? I know it was about safety.
On December 6, 2019, there was a foreign terrorist attack on Naval Air Station Pensacola.
Yes.
What are you doing to prevent that from happening again?
And there was another one on Building 197 at the Naval Sea Systems Command as well, too, whereas in the private sector I had 3 employees that were in the building as well, too. So we have taken a series of security measures at all our facilities to try to make things tighter, essentially, in every possible way, whether it's checking into a building, whether it's coming onto a base, all those things to try to protect our own people. But I will tell you, it's tough. When you have a really bad person who wants to do harm, it's hard, And I think the best advice I can give all of you is to be as observant as you possibly can in every possible way, so that when you see something that isn't usual, isn't normal, that you bring it to somebody else's attention, because it's the forever challenge of, okay, they screen everybody who boards an airplane, right? You have the tightest levels of security going onto a plane. Well, what if they blew somebody up in a car outside the airport and everybody's driving in, right? Are you going to stop cars and screen every car that comes into the airport to drop off passengers? No, it's going to be too inconvenient, right? So again, it goes back to sometimes there are no easy answers. It's about how much risk you're willing to take. And I'm a big believer in operationally testing the system, so that we should be doing random searches at all our buildings, for example. And this also plays into counter-espionage as well, too, counter-threat efforts. It's very important that with all the technologies that you're developing here, that you're very sensitive to ensuring you change your passcode on your computer often, right? And make it a challenging passcode, not a simple passcode, like the name of your children or your wife or something like that, right? So everybody plays a small part, but it's important. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Lieutenant Commander Nicholas Fritzand. I'm a FAO in the NSA program here.
Oh, one of my FAOs.
I really appreciate getting to meet you yesterday at the Trident Room as well, and thank you for coming here this morning. My question is, as we strengthen our relationship with our partners and allies around the world, I was hoping you could provide some insight into the strategy behind downgrading all but 5 of our senior defense attaches from the flag level.
Let me not get in trouble, right, Katerina? Look, the Secretary of Defense was put in a very tough position, okay? The 2018 NDAA, I think it was 2017 NDAA actually, mandated that we reduce the number of flag officers in the United States Navy, across the department, actually, across all services, and the number of SESs as well, too. The politics behind that is complicated. It's somewhat ancient history right now. But I personally have made the case to the Secretary of Defense and to others in Congress, and as has he, because he's also very sensitive to it as well, and everybody in the department and all the service secretaries, that, you know, how can we be called upon to be reducing the number of flag officers we have when we're trying to fight China, we're trying to fight Russia, we have all these major challenges, and the number of SESs that we have as well, too. So there's a debate going on right now, I think, between, you know, the administration and the Congress. And again, you know, there's 535 members of Congress. There are many different perspectives and opinions on the subject on Capitol Hill on this issue. But I've been trying to advocate sort of against it. And what I am pleased is that at least for billets that are truly critical billets that develop at a moment's time, that we at least get waiver authority to go beyond the caps so that we can put that particular billet into motion, right? At the same time, I'm extremely pleased by the strength of the FAO program, for example, that we have tremendously capable 06s that are able to step up to the plate, right? Hey, it's upward mobility, baby. 5 less admirals, 5 more opportunities for 06s to excel, right? Well, guess what? We're going to send you some pretty tough and challenging places now, and hopefully the education that you got here and at the Navy War College will help you fulfill those roles, you know? And I'll be an optimist. But obviously, historically speaking, in many cases, it would be better to have a 1-star or even a 2-star if you go back in time long enough in some of those challenging positions. So, I got the hook. She's the hook. Absolutely. Absolutely. Where are you from?
Australia, sir.
Australia. Very nice. You're not going to ask me for more submarines, are you? Oh, I get myself in so much trouble, don't I, Katerina?
Still in the air. My question is about culture, but a different kind of question about risk appetite and agility. So 33 years ago, the center of gravity for technology innovation was inside the military, for the military, and by the military. The world had never even heard of Windows 3.1. Today, that center of technology has moved up the road, arguably, to Silicon Valley.
And a lot of other places too, by the way.
Places. The first place graduates from here go is back to the fleet. And my question is the fleet really the best place to learn agility, flexibility, and risk appetite? And I'm thinking particularly about the lament of venture capitalists when they find that they can't bid for innovative new products because of the restrictive philosophies and acquisition policies of...
I absolutely do think that it's the best place for you to go back to. Because I will tell you that not one of those venture capitalists or not one of those EE students at Stanford or anything like that truly understands what it's like to be in CIC, Combat Information Center, of a destroyer about ready to put white missiles on the rail, and have to make the decision whether to fire or not fire against a high-speed inbound speedboat or aircraft or anything like that. And that's what we need you to be able to do. That's what differentiates you from all the other students and all the other advanced technological schools around the country. You are warrior scholars in the truest sense. And you come here to learn the mechanics and the academics and the engineering side of the house, but it's the application, it's the experience that you have, the operational experience that you gain at sea or under the sea or wherever you may go in the field if you're a Marine. And being able to bring that experience to bear and how we then employ these technologies in the future that I think matters most. Now, there's some of you that are going to be very specialized, engineering duty officers, and you might work just on IAA. But I would argue even then, it's that operational experience that steers you in the right decision to make the programmatic and acquisition decisions that you're going to have to make well into the future. So that's why you're here, and that's why I think it's far more valuable than anything else. So, not to say that our engagement with industry is also incredibly important, and we have to better understand. So stop and think about, you know who General Bolden is? Marine Corps General. He was director of NASA.
Yes, oh yes.
Okay. He was a 2-star Marine Corps General, and then went on to be director of NASA, an astronaut, and he was there at NASA at a time when NASA basically says we're not going to do manned flight anymore. And we're going to commercialize space. And everybody was so critical of it. My God, how is it possible we're abandoning the space program? How is it possible the federal government's not going to do this? It's unheard of. Look at us now, for God's sakes. SpaceX and all these other space companies are just transforming, commercially and militarily, how we conduct ourselves in space, how we operate in our space. Our communication systems, our navigation systems, everything you could possibly imagine, right? It's been transformative, right? It's the combination between folks like you who have the operational military experience working with those bright, talented, young engineers all throughout industry. That's the winning combination in my personal opinion. And we have to find the right balance and compromise in terms of how you work together to achieve that success. Okay, I'll take one last question and then we'll go. One more, Madam President. As much as I adore you, who's going to ask the last question? Ah, there we go, right up here.
Sir.
No, you stay. I'll ask only if it's a quick question, and then that's it.
Maria Rasmussen, Chair of the National Security Affairs Department. Thank you for your speech. It was brilliant. It was also mostly directed to the students, and I understand that's the reason we're all here. I would like you at the end to address the faculty, my colleagues. And I think it's brilliant you gave your speech next to that thing which earned you your degree, but is totally obsolete. And you did address that. You did address that in your speech. You said there's a tension between teaching our students how to think and teaching them about tactical developments. And that's, as a professor, that's a tension we live with on a daily basis. I lead a department with social scientists, historians, political scientists, economists, and sociologists, and we teach first principles, how the world, political world, works, but we're also told by President Rondeau and others that we have to prove our value to the Navy.
Sure.
On a daily basis, help the Navy do its job. And there's a tension there. I'd like you to address that tension using your balance and compromise.
Well, I'm going to be helping you explain to many others the value that NPS provides to the Navy, okay? Some people need a little bit more instruction than others, okay? I don't. And anybody who questions the value of an education in terms of any endeavor, should question themselves and their good judgment, in my humble opinion. Dr. David Dembski was my speech teacher in high school. And here I am giving a speech to some of the brightest people that our Navy and Department of Defense has to offer. And it's only because of Dr. Dembski, I think, and partially because of him, that I'm able to do what I do. It's because of Dr. Rudy Panholzer that I'm able to run a satellite ground station a couple of years coming out of the Navy Postgraduate School, or understand how communication works on a Navy ship or a submarine or anything else. It's because of each and every one of you who don't nearly get paid enough for the work that you do. It's because of each and every one of you that each and every one of these students will go on, whether it's internationally or nationally, and go on to high accolades and perform at their best, hopefully, throughout their entire career and defends our freedoms around the world. I really mean that. I'm not just saying that. It really is because of each and every one of you professors. You know this. You have a lasting impact. Dr. Sharif Michaels here, you know, who was a young electrical engineering professor when I was here, now far more experienced electrical engineering professor. It's because of him that I learned electrical engineering. So I applaud each and every one of you. I really do. And I think that the impact that you make is just extraordinary in so many ways. And I'm going to answer your question privately because I think that's how I want to end this discussion today, is by thanking each and every one of you professors here for the work that you do. And you meet me in the back. Better be a good question. Meet me in the back and I'll answer your question, I assure you. Okay? So thank you for your time here. This will not be my last visit to the Navy Postgraduate School. The president tasked me with a bunch of tasks last night, so I got to come back and fulfill all of those tasks. But God bless each and every one of you. Thanks.